Hello, my name's Kate Edmondson and I'm a nursery nurse for the school nursing team in Warsaw, and I'm going to take you through the behaviour workshop for children with additional needs. So why are we here today? Well, we're here because we want change, but change takes time and often starts with very small steps, starting from today. But are we here just to change our child's behaviour, or are we here to look at our own behaviour as well? So how can these behaviours make parents feel? Well, they can make them feel scared, especially if there's more physical and verbal abuse there. It can be exhausting, it can be stressful, and sometimes that can make you feel very alone. You can become quite embarrassed, especially if some of these behaviours are happening out in public. Sometimes you may feel that you're unable to cope, and then you start questioning your parenting, and you feel like a bad parent. You may start comparing yourself to other parents, and even start comparing your child to other children or other siblings. You might become anxious about your parenting or anxious going into situations where you feel that the behaviour might escalate, and then you might feel judged, and it can be very frustrating. So parenting, there is no such thing as a perfect parent or no such thing as a perfect child, and parenting is hard, but it's about recognising that it's a hard job. With this workshop, we're looking at enabling parents to add to the skills that they already have. And this is the start of the process. And for some, this session may be enough. But for some parents, you may choose to undertake one of our parenting programs. So in the next few slides, I'm just going to look at the causes of behaviour. So the first one we're going to look at is genetics. As well as inheriting physical features such as our eye colour, our hair colour, our skin colour from our parents, we also inherit our characteristics. So children who may have difficulties with concentration or can feel low may have inherited a genetic makeup that can make them more likely to have this problem. So it's about looking at yourself and your partners when you were younger. Did you have issues? Did your partner have issues with concentration? Did you have issues with your behaviour? Asking grandparents, they might be able to help. So the family environment can have an impact on a child's behaviour. So if parents or carers or a child are escalating their behaviour to get what they want, so this can be within an argument, and the louder and louder the person gets, so the person with the loudest voice who can shout everyone else down is able to get what they want in the end. Accidentally rewarding behaviour. For example, us as parents and carers, we're very, very busy in our day-to-day lives, and sometimes children can misbehave. So what we will be doing there is giving them their computers or giving them time on their TV so we can get on with what we need to do. But what are they learning from that? That if they misbehave, they get what they want. Ignoring positive behaviour. And we don't always mean to ignore the positive behaviour. We just do this because it's what we want to happen. We want what we want to do. And the negative behaviour is the one that has more impact on us. But it start recognising that positive behaviour and we'll see a change in the negative. Watching others, if parents or carers argue a lot or fight a lot, the child can then copy that because that's how they think you have to behave when something's not going right. They could be watching and copying siblings. A parent's carer's belief and expectations that can come in to causing issues with behaviour. If you've used punishments that don't work, an example of this is if you said to them, if they've done something wrong and you said, well, you're never having your telly, well, they probably are going to have their telly. So it's looking at what kind of punishment when they have done wrong is going to work and what's effective and being realistic. If the parents' relationships or the parents are feeling stressed or anxious, that can have an impact on a child's behaviour. And then the way we give children instructions. Some children really struggle with following instructions. So it's looking at different ways to do that. So it's making sure we're not giving too many instructions. So they can only recall maybe one or two, and then they're getting in trouble because they haven't done all of the instruction. Giving too few instructions, not giving them enough information, making the instructions too hard, especially with children that have communication difficulties. Following instructions can be really hard, so it's about using visual aids to help them. Giving an instruction in a bad timing, for example, if they're right in the middle of their favourite program or in their favourite computer game, and we're asking them to do it there and then. It's about putting ourselves in their shoes. What if we were watching our favourite program and someone asked us, we need you to do this straight away. It's about looking at that. You still want them to do what you've asked, but actually, can it wait until they've finished? And going back to remind them. And then being clear on what we're asking the child to do or what we want them to do. So health can be a cause of behaviour. Children may seem more difficult when they are unwell. So if they're poorly, their behaviour may change. If a child is having issue with their hearing, they may be seen to be misbehaving, but actually, have they heard what has been asked of them? Are they hearing the instructions, all of the instructions? So it's worth checking their hearing to see if they are able to hear. If a child's not eating, either if they're not eating enough or they're not eating a healthy diet, this can lead to a lack of energy. So they're unable then to learn or listen to what they're being told. And then influences outside of the home. A lot of children, their peers are a big influence on them. So this can be friends outside of school or friends within school. They can be copying their friends. If they're quite vulnerable children, their friends may be telling them what to do. So they're just following along with their friends. It could be that they could be getting bullied, and that's influencing their behaviour. How children are doing at school, and this can be that they may be transitioning and they're struggling with transitioning up to a new school, or even transitioning from class to class. And also some children, you might find their behaviour is changing because they're finding it hard at school. They're struggling with their work, they're struggling with some of the lessons. And then a big one nowadays is technology and social media. Children can learn a lot of negative behaviour from what they're accessing online, and certain computer games, there can be a lot of swearing and aggression within those. So it's being mindful about what are my children looking at online, what kind of computer games are appropriate for their ages, and actually as a parent and a carer, is teaching yourselves how to look online so you can understand what they're doing. So here are some of the types of behaviours that may occur with some of the children. So we've got self-harm. Now within self-harm, we're looking at they might be biting at themselves, they might be pinching at themselves, they could be scratching their arms or their legs. So it's looking at that kind of behaviour. There might be hyperactivity, so they're unable to keep their attention on a task for a certain amount of time. There could be verbal aggression, so this is swearing at someone, either yourselves or someone else, and it can be swear words, it can be not very kind things that they're saying. It could be stereotypical, so when we're talking about that, it can be such things as flapping of the hands and the arms or rocking back and forth. They may develop risky behaviour. So it could be that for maybe some younger children that you're walking down the road and they just run out into the road because they're unaware of the environment around them and the risks that are there. There could be smearing, and this can be feces or other body fluids, and that can be at home, and they can do it at school as well. We've got something called pica. Now, pica is something where they are eating non-foods. So this can be dirt, it can be sand, it can be wallpaper, cotton, anything like that. We've got inattention. So inattention is when they're unable um, to understand details, and they're easily distracted. And also, a child with inattention has trouble organising themselves or even finishing a task. We then have impulsivity. So, a child that has impulsivity will just think in their head all of a sudden and then do what that they say. So, you could be walking along the road and they see a wall and they climb the wall and jump off it, and not looking at how safe it can be. And then you have your physical aggression. So this is your punching, your kicking, and that can be hurting others, themselves, or even doing it to property as well. So why do some of these behaviours occur? There are many reasons why children behave the way that they do, but understanding some of these reasons can help you manage or reduce or often prevent some of these unwanted behaviours. So the first one we've got there is avoidance. So avoidance could be that they just don't want to do something. And sometimes we find this a lot with schools. So their behaviour will change because they don't want to go to school. So it's looking about what is the reason they don't want to go to school. It could be a biological cause, like I did said before. It could be genetics. There could be something going there. Could be communication. They're unable to communicate with you their feelings, so it comes from frustration, or they're not able to understand what you're communicating to them. There could be an illness. This can have an effect on a child, and it could be something if they've got an illness and they have medication. It could be to do with their medication as well. There could be a change in their routine. A lot of children thrive on routine, and when there's a change going on there, and it can be something as small that we think as small as just their class teacher isn't there, that one day can have a big effect on their behaviour. So it's at looking at those changes, and if we know a change is coming up, it's preparing the child for that change. There could be a developmental delay. That's affecting their behaviour. They're not at the same development stage as their peers in their class, or so that's having an effect on them. So it's looking at that. It's looking at their environmental, not just at home, but also at school. So it's looking at the wider environment. There could be some vulnerability there. So they're not actually aware that sometimes somebody's telling them to do something that's wrong. They just trust that person, so they go along with it. There can be sensory issues. There are children out there that really struggle with their sensory issues, and this can be the lights might be too bright for them. There's lots of sounds going on and they just can't cope with the sounds. It can be a certain smell. And then attention seeking. They want more attention off a certain person, so their behaviour will change. Now, all children need love, they need guidance, and they also need rules and boundaries. But if a parent-child relationship has become damaged because of a behaviour concern, and it can negatively affect the way the child behaves, and it also has an impact on how the parent reacts and deals with that behaviour. So we have a little circle here, and what this is showing us is that what we're thinking and how we're feeling affects our behaviour. So for an example, if you're thinking, they never do as I say, they just don't listen, they're so naughty, we're going to feel angry, upset, worthless, sad. And then how we're going to behave is going to be more negative. We may shout, we may just give up. So if we try switching it around and thinking of the positive things that are going on, so although we're having negative behaviours, what good behaviours are we seeing? So it's thinking more positively. So then we're going to feel more positive. We're going to, and then we're going to act in more a positive way. And then this will have an effect on how our child then reacts back to us. So what can we do? Well, we can put in boundaries. So it's having a look at what kind of boundaries do we have, and what is the behaviour that we're having issues in. So what boundaries, and then with boundaries obviously comes consequences. So if they overstep that boundary, what is their consequence going to be? Then relaxation. We all need a time where we can relax and have quiet time. So it's looking as individuals for your child, times where they can relax, and then as a family where you can have quiet time or chat time just to relax and see how your days have gone. Social stories and visual aids are really good, especially for children that are having communication issues. And social stories can vary from all different issues that you're having. And it also shows that the child that they're not the only one that are having these issues. The visual aids are great for children who are non-verbal and are unable to communicate how they're feeling. Routines and structure. Um, Children thrive on routine and structure, and it goes along with boundaries. So making sure a routine and structure is in there in place. But if you know that your routine is going to change, it's preparing that child for the change. And then being consistent. So again, being consistent with your rules, being consistent with your routines, and have that consistency across all parents and carers and grandparents, and even across school as well. Having communication with your child, and having communication across settings if you feel that there's issues across settings. Again, looking at communication with your child, are they able to understand what you're saying to them or asking of them? So again, we can bring in the visual aids if they're unsure. Being proactive, a part of that proactive is what you're doing now, is listening to this workshop, but that being proactive in also what you want to change and how you're going to go about changing it. And actually sitting down as a family and looking at how we can change things. And then being reactive. So if a situation has come up, it's actually reacting to it in a positive way, and not just pushing it to the side and leaving it. And then we can look at rewards and incentives. So monitoring behaviour. So monitoring your child's behaviour is a useful way of checking the following. So what possible triggers of behaviour there are. So what is triggering your child's behaviour? Why are they behaving like that? It could be when or where it will show. So it could be that it's more in the morning, or it's more at bedtime, or it's even actually it might be more at school, or it might be going out shopping. How did the parent react to the child's behaviour? That's an important one to look at and monitor. And when you've figured out the triggers and possibly when and where, um, and then putting in strategies there, are things now improving? So we have an ABC chart, which can help monitor behaviour, because it can be difficult to understand why your child is behaving the way they do. And sometimes it seems there's no reason for this behaviour as well. The ABC chart is a bit like an investigation, and it helps you gather clues of what is happening and why it's happening. Um, we have a before, a during, and after. So the before is the antecedent. So it's about looking at what were you doing. So what were you doing before the behaviour happened? What was your child doing? Were they playing, or were they busy doing something else? Was there anybody else around before the behaviour happened? So was there another grown up? Was there another child? And what were you thinking before? So what kind of things were you thinking beforehand? And what was your child thinking? Now, sometimes some children can tell you what they were thinking after the incident, but for those children who are either too young to tell you, or they are unable to tell you, is trying to put yourself in their shoes to have a think, what were they thinking at that time? And then what was the atmosphere like? Did you feel it was like a normal atmosphere, nothing was going on, or was there something different about the atmosphere at that time? And then we move on to during. So this is the behaviour. So what did the child do? What was the behaviour that the child did? What did you do when the behaviour was happening? What were the others doing around you? So if there were anybody around, did they move away? Did they join in? Did they try and help? Again, it's now putting yourself into that child's shoes. What were they thinking? You can ask them again, but if they can't, thinking, what were they thinking? And then what were you thinking? How did you feel? And then we move on to the after, so the consequence. So what happened after? Did you give them a punishment? Was there a consequence for what happened? What did you do? What did your child do? Did they calm down? Um, and then again, it's putting yourself into their shoes. What were they thinking after? And then what were you thinking and feeling after as well? So here's an example of a behaviour chart. And we've got the date. So you can put the date of when the behaviour happened. And it's also important I'd put the time on there as well. So you can start working out, is it a certain time of day that this behaviour is happening? So this example is of, I'd say a child around a 4-year-old. So we're going to look at before. So before the incident happened, we were walking around the supermarket and Jane asked for some sweets. I told her that she could not have any because we had some shopping and it was just for food. So we're going to move on to B. So what happened? What was the behaviour? Well, Jane had a tantrum and was screaming and hitting me. So then what happened after? So this is C. So I brought Jane the sweets, and then her behaviour was so embarrassing that we went to home, and then I told her off for her behaviour when we got home. So we've done that incident, and now we're going to look back and look at what happened then. So it's putting ourselves in, looking at our feelings. So beforehand, well, how was I feeling in before the incident happened? Well, I hadn't only enough money to get the food I needed, so I wanted to go and get the food, and I needed to get back because I had other jobs, so I was feeling quite stressed anyway. Well, how was Jane feeling? Well, we were going on a shopping trip, and she thought, oh, when we go food shopping, there's sweets there, so she wanted the sweets, so she was wanting sweet. So how was Jane feeling and how was I feeling during the tantrum? Well, I was really embarrassed because she was hitting and she was screaming and everybody was looking. Well, how do I feel Jane was feeling? Well, actually, she wanted her sweets, so she just had it focused on her sweets, and I'd said no. So actually, she was pretty angry as well. So what happened after? Um, well, she got the sweets, didn't she, Jane did. So how do you think Jane felt? Well, actually, she got her sweets, so she got what she wanted. So she was pretty happy about that. But then she was quite confused when I got home because I told her off. And how was I feeling? Well, I was just really embarrassed and I was really, really cross with her actually. If I again look at that feelings, what did Jane learn from this behaviour? Well, she actually learned that if she throws a tantrum, she gets what she wants. So now what would I do different? Well, maybe before we even went to the shopping trip, we'd make a list of what we wanted from the supermarket, and maybe Jane would be able to help me get those, and she could see on the list, actually sweets aren't on the list because I can't afford them, but we've got all these other things on the list and you can help me get them. So then hopefully the shopping trip will go quite well. If I do run into issues, it's about making sure that I'm strong. And then, although it can be very embarrassing if Jane did have another tantrum, I've got to be strong because I'm teaching her that if she can't throw a tantrum to get what she wants. So even though it might be embarrassing, I've got to kind of close that off and just concentrate on me and Jane. Then hopefully I'll be able to get through my shopping trip. So that's just a little example of what a behaviour chart can do and how it can help you reflect back on that behaviour. So now we're going to move on to praise. Do we always pay attention to our children when they're behaving well? Um, but sometimes we don't, because actually that's what we expect them to do. And the negative behaviour is the one that has more impact on us. But praise is important, and it's a positive way to encourage good behaviour. So we need to be descriptive with our praise and describe what we actually liked about that child's behaviour. So, for example, you could say, "Well done for tidying up your toys after you finished playing with them." You could add in, "That really helped mummy today." Um, but when we're giving that praise, we need to give it in a genuine way and say it enthusiastically, so that encourages the child to do it again. Some children might not be used to praise, and they also might find it difficult to accept compliments. But if we start putting that into our routine, daily routines, giving compliments, receiving compliments, then they'll soon start getting used to it, and they'll soon start and want to get more of that praise, because then they can see how positive that is and how more positive you are with that. So rewards. Now, reward charts can be used to manage your behaviour. The reward chart goal needs to be positive and not vague. So, for example, if the child is shouting in the house a lot and you want them to stop, so it's about bringing that back into a small so they understand it. So, I'd like you to talk in a nice voice, in a nice quiet voice, because we're inside. So, making it positive and not vague. Remember, rewards don't have to cost lots of money. We've talked to children a lot about this, and a lot of times the rewards that children want is spending more time with the people they love and doing things that they enjoy. So it could be that they go to the park with their family or their friends. They might invite someone special round to the house to have dinner. They might have a film night, or they might be able to choose their favourite meal that once they've received all their rewards. And rewards work best when they're discussed and agreed with the child, and not just told, "Well, if you do all this, then you can get this at the end of it." And we can use star charts to set targets for children as well to earn those rewards. And we always say, if they've had a bad day, never take the reward back that they earned the day before. They just don't achieve it for that day. And make it easy for children to earn the star rewards. So it's about looking at the issues they've got and actually breaking them into the small little steps so they'll be able to achieve it. So they're more likely to start on the next reward and build it up then. And reward charts can be phased out once the child is earning their stars. But if we are phasing them out, it's really important that we continue with the praise when they're doing things that you want them to do. So diagnosis. So this is a process of assessing a child in different settings, and it can be by a number of professionals. And the process usually starts with the lowest level of intervention first, and then from that, the outcome of this aids an assessment. Now, a diagnosis for conditions such as ADHD or ASC are unlikely if the behaviour is not happening across the settings the child are in. So, for example, if the behaviours are within school but they're not at home, then it is unlikely that the diagnosis they'll have a diagnosis go forwards. And again, vice versa. If you're finding the behaviours are more at home and not at school, then again, it is unlikely there will be a diagnosis. But no matter what diagnosis a child has, if there are any issues with a child's behaviour, those issues need to be addressed. So early help. Well, early help is when children present with a behaviour. The family often need a range of support from a number of services. So early help pull all those services together, and it's a process to help those services work together as a team with the parents and the families to help meet the needs of that child. And parenting is an important but challenging role, and it can be helpful to have the early help team for that support. In Warsaw, we have an early help team who can offer and have a useful first port of help and guidance. Um, they run a variety of workshops and parenting across the whole of Warsaw. And there's just a website that you can put into your and see what is happening in your area, in your locality. So here's some takeaway tips from today. So take a couple of weeks to monitor your child's behaviour. See if you can start to understand what are the triggers there, when are the triggers happening. Start looking and noticing at their good behaviour, and when they are having that good behaviour, giving them that praise. Start bringing in those compliments each day as well. Try and provide some engaging and supervised activities, especially if you have to get some jobs done and you need them to do something. Try and see if you can get them engaged in something, and it can be short little things, so it could be 10-minute activities, and doing things together as well. Ensure that there are routines in place and those boundaries are set, and then being consistent. So when those routines are in place and those boundaries are set, that you're consistent across yourself, partners, grandparents, and outside of the family home. It could be consistency across to the settings such as school as well. So if your child is struggling with their behaviour in school, then it's really important that you work with your child's teacher. You can make an appointment with your child's teacher, and also a teacher who is responsible for pastoral care. This person is sometimes also called a Senko, and they're there to support children who have additional needs. So it's about looking at what school are putting in place for your child. Can there be regular communication between home and school? And this can be by a book sent back and forth, or it can be via emails or phone calls, regular phone calls. If your child does have an additional needs, what support are they getting there? Are they on the SEM register? Is there regular meetings that you can attend as well? My also advice is that if you are having a meeting with the teacher or with the Senko, or is to actually write down what you want to ask before you go into the meeting, because sometimes you can go into a meeting and completely forget what you want to say and come out and wish you'd said all the other things. So if you write down that, then you're able to get through what you need to. So within the school nursing team, we have some parenting programs available to you. So the first one we have is understanding your child's behaviour, which is also known as the Solihull approach. It's a 10-week programme for parents and carers who want to know more about sensitive and effective parenting. And these sessions include how are you and your child feeling? Do you understand how your child feelings? Can you communicate that? Are they able to communicate back to you how they're feeling as well? And do you understand them when they do? We then look at tuning into your child's development needs. So are they where they should be development wise, but also are they where they should be emotionally as well? We then look at the parent and child relationship. A lot of times when we're looking at relationships, we were looking at what happened, what negatives happening. But within this, we're looking at having fun together and then communicating with your child. We look at what's happening when things go wrong and how we can get back on track. The next program we have is called the Triple P Positive Parenting Program, and this is an 8-week program, and this supports parents to promote positive behaviour. And with this in this program, we give you strategies to help deal with those difficult behaviours. So we do this in the first sessions. So for the first 4 sessions, we look at causes of children's behaviour, building up positive relationships, promoting desirable behaviours, and then managing misbehaviour. In the next 3 weeks, we then ask you to go away and use the strategies that we've taught you. but we do give you a call every week just to see how things are going. And if things are going wrong, we help to try and get you back on track. And then on the last session, we come back together and we look about how do we move on from now? What else do we need to do? So if anybody's ever been on an aeroplane, the safety message at the beginning is always, when the oxygen mask falls, adults need to put their oxygen masks on first before assisting children. So sometimes when parents and carers are anxious, or they may have low self-esteem themselves, this can impact on the way they manage their child's behaviour. And children also can mirror their parents' anxieties, and this can communicate through their behaviour as well. But if you have a parent or carer who has good emotional well-being, then they're in a much better place to support their child. So within the school nursing team, we have something called the Adult Resilience Programme. And this programme helps adults to build up confidence, it reduces anxiety, and it improves skills to cope more effectively when managing challenging situations for yourselves and also those that come up for your children as well. So within this programme, we look at developing an awareness of your own feelings. Do you understand how you feel at times? We then look at mindfulness, and then we look at empathy towards others. We then look at identifying our body clues when we're getting stressed. So we look at how our body is our friend and how sometimes our body is giving us those clues before we even know. Um, so then when we start recognising those clues, we can start looking at relaxation techniques. We then look at challenging negative thoughts and changing them into positive thoughts. So when we are stressed and we've got anxieties, we can very much jump to our negative thoughts. But within this session, we look at how we can change that, how we can move those to the positive thoughts, which will make us then feel much better. We look at identifying role models and then building support networks. And those support networks can be within our own families, or it can be move out towards school or even online networks. And then we look at setting goals and then exploring solutions and coping step plans. So within this, we look at how normally we can see a problem and all we see is the problem. But if we break it down into small coping steps, then that problem is much easier to tackle. So getting more help. We have a school nursing team on duty, and there'll be a school nurse Monday to Fridays, 9 to 5. And you can call them in, not just about behaviour, but you can call them about any of the health issues you find that your child has. So that number is 01922 423 349. And again, it's for any information or any help with any health issues. And we also have a texting service, and that texting service is a confidential service, and you can text in a question to a school nurse, and again they will answer that 9 to 5 Monday to Fridays. But you can also text in and ask a school nurse to ring you back if that's what you need. We have some websites here which are Health for Kids and Health for Teens. A lot of the information for parents is on the Health for Kids site, but for both of them there's lots of information, and you just go onto the website and there's a drop down box for your area. You click on your area and there's a lot of information for that area on health. So it can be from behaviour to puberty, any kind of health issues you might be having. Also within the school nursing service, we have workshops for additional needs. So we have our toileting workshop, we have a fussy eating workshop, a puberty one, and a sex and relationship education. And then we have a general health workshop. So if you would like some more information on those, please don't hesitate to ring us. Or if you'd like to discuss anything else with a school nurse, please give us a call on that 01922 number. And thank you for listening to the workshop. I do hope it's been helpful for you.